about purpose and about our meaning, and really looking at like our lives and saying, is there more to life than this? Is there more to life than just what we're going through, than what I'm experiencing? Is there more to life than just wake up, go to work, go home, make sure everyone has food, go to sleep, and then do it again? And then again to a point where wake up, go to work, come home, go to bed, do it again, and then eventually you retire and you go, all right, now what do I do? Now I live like my entire life, everyone just telling me, oh, just get to retirement. Now I'm retired. Nobody told me what I'm supposed to do. Now what do I do, right? And then the good news, then you die. And that's life. And you're like, all right, hold on. Is there more to life than that? Like, is there more to life than this? And so we've been looking at how do we find and really discover meaning and purpose in our life? And we ask the question, not what's the meaning of life, but what's the meaning of my life? What's the reason, God, what's the reason for my life? Not just life in general, but what's your purpose for me? And how do I figure that out? And how do I learn to live out my purpose regardless of the job I'm at or when I retire or what activity I'm doing that particular day? But how do I really find out what I'm supposed to be doing? And this morning we're looking at one that is really hard. We're answering this question: what do I do? What do I do when life feels broken? What do I do when my life feels broken? And here's the thing: like life has a way of breaking us, or rupturing us, Achilles. Like life has a way of just breaking us down, and sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly. Sometimes you get a phone call and it changes everything. Maybe a medical diagnosis or a family member calls and you're not going to believe it. This happened, and a tragedy or a loss of a loved one. Sometimes it's a prayer that you've been praying for years and it goes unanswered and you're like, why God, why God, why God? Sometimes it's a loss you didn't see coming. We experience breaks in relationships, certainly in our health and our bodies, in our minds and our faith, where we go through seasons and we're like, man, life is beating me up right now. And what makes it harder, I think what makes it harder is like, we go on social media and we see everyone else has a perfect, wonderful life, right? And all they do, like people just post the amazing trips that they're on and like, oh, you're in Hawaii again. You're like, I'm so happy for you. And like, oh, we got another new puppy that's perfect. And you're like, oh, hope it poops everywhere. And like everything is just wonderful and look at my life and it's amazing. And it's like pictures of the family on a trip or whatever and everyone's smiling and hugging and high-fiving. And you're like, man, our family hates each other. And like they do. But like, and here's what, so we see this. You go online and you see this and you can tend to believe that everyone else has it figured out. You go online and you see everyone else is living their best life. What's wrong with me? Why does my life feel like it's being held together with duct tape? And everyone else is like enjoying life, it seems to be. And here's what nobody tells you, okay? I'm gonna tell you what no one else tells you. Everyone is broken. Every life of every wonderful post of every vacation and every trip, and it's like, oh, we had this thing and I got my dream job and this thing. Oh, that's awesome. Guess what? That person, if you were to sit down and be like, hey, so what are things really like? Oh man, I'm really struggling. Nobody posts the struggles on their Instagram feed, but they are there. And we can tend to believe and to think that everyone else has it together. And then there's me. And you come to church, and this has been this is what you guys did. You woke up today, you got dressed, you probably got dressed nice, you got your Sunday best maybe. Some of you, you're like, it's church, we're going to church. And you show up and everyone is happy. At least it seems like it. And everyone's like, nice, good to see you, and handshake, and you drop the kids off, and like, oh, you're here. Oh. And then you come in, and you're like, all right, and you sit down, you go through worship, and then you get to spot, and you're like, man, seems like all these people got it together. Can I let you in on another secret? I haven't met with all of you. I don't know all of you. I've met with many of you. Listen, okay? These people don't have it together. In this room, we are all broken and have our stuff. We have our issues, we got our past, we got our stuff. I'm telling you. And some of, like, I get to meet with people and hear their story, and some of the things are like shocking, like overwhelming. You're like, that happened, and then that happened, and that, yeah. And wow, man. So what do you do when life feels broken? So what do you do with that? The fact that like all of us have broken in us, and all of us have pain and struggle and stuff that we go, man, why? I don't know. What am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do with this? When God feels silent, when things fall apart, we're going to look at Romans 8 and then 2 Corinthians 12 today, and both are written by Paul. And here's what happens in these moments. When it feels like life is just, you're barely hanging on, the questions you have are not theological. It isn't, oh man, if I just knew a few more Greek words, I think my life would be better. It isn't like, oh, I just have to have a better understanding of end times. And then, no. The questions are not theological. They become deeply personal. The question becomes, God, do you even care? God, are you even there? Where are you in this? How come you're allowing this to happen? Aren't you supposed to be good? This is not a good thing that I'm experiencing. I'm really struggling here. We're going to look at two passages that, ironically, even as we say that, are deeply theological, but they're deeply personal. The theology is what drives Paul to his understanding of who God is, and it leads to his experience of God. So theology for theology's sake is helpful in knowing about God, but theology should drive us to understanding and action, and that's what we're going. So here's what we're going to see. This is the point of this morning. When we think about like our pain and our purpose, how does this all like line up? How does it all work? Here it is. Ready? God doesn't waste your pain. Here's what he does. He weaves it into your purpose. The pain you've experienced, here's what we're going to see this morning. The pain you've experienced, God is actually weaving into the purpose and meaning of your life. It isn't something that you look at and say, why, God? You say, oh, that's why. So just fair warning. It's going to get a little tense here, and we're going to get deep, because we can't talk about pain and suffering without all of us going, oh yeah, I feel that. Okay, I know that. I felt that. And so what, like this morning, I hope is for us is to reframe our understanding of what pain is, and to recognize that God is not, he doesn't waste your pain. He's actually weaving it into the purpose of your life. C.S. Lewis, he says this in The Problem of Pain: God whispers to us in our pleasures. He speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. He says one of the ways that God gets a hold of our attention is through pain. That when we live a comfortable life, a normal life, just kind of like just going through like our daily experience, but nothing too crazy, nothing too bad, nothing too good. It's almost like we just kind of forget and we're kind of numb to it. And all of a sudden, pain comes in, and it's God saying, hey, you forgot about me. And all of a sudden we go, why, God? Why, God? And he says, well, hey, at least you're talking to me now. It's like he uses and allows pain and suffering to get our attention, to say, well, hold on. This can't be. There has to be more to life than this. All right. So today we're going to start in Romans 8, and then we'll look at 2 Corinthians as well. And here's the first thing that we see. Our pain is real. Your pain is real. It's not trivial. It's not minor. It's not like, just get over it. Your pain is real, but it's not the whole story. Your pain is very real. The suffering you've experienced is very real. And yet, it's only part of the truth of your story. Here's what Paul says in Romans chapter 8. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Paul, what are you saying? Like Paul sometimes, like you can see like Paul's an intellectual. Like some of the writers of the Bible are just straightforward. Like James was very simple, and he's like, hey, here's what you should do. You should listen more and speak less. And you're like, wow, that makes sense. And Paul, like, I don't know if he's paid per word or what, but like he just is like, just throwing all kinds of like, wow, what are you saying? Here's like the theological, eloquent way. Here's what he's saying. Ready? He says that then the Greek word he uses here for consider is logizomai, which is where like this idea of logic or logical. And he's like, I've made a logical consideration in my head, and this logically makes sense to me. Here's where I've landed. Ready? That our present suffering are not worth comparing to what's coming. That our present suffering is real, but it's nothing compared to what's coming. That the future that God has for us is so much greater than the suffering we're experiencing. And this was written by a guy who suffered. This is the Apostle Paul. Like, we have experienced pain and suffering. I think we could argue, like, if we stacked up like his list of suffering to ours, he would beat all of us. And this guy says, I consider it, listen, when I consider these two, it's not even worth considering. Our present suffering is not compared to the glory that's coming. And then he says this, for all of creation waits for the children of God to be revealed. And since the beginning, now he goes back to the garden, to Genesis 3, and he says, from the beginning, it was subjected to frustration, and sin came in and corruption. And from then on, not by its own choice, it's now waiting to be liberated from the bondage of decay. Like all of creation is waiting to get made right again, to be renewed. And he's saying, we're in that now. We're in the midst of that. And when it comes, when this renewal comes, it will be so much greater than any of the suffering or pain that we have experienced. Though those are very real, that the what's coming is so much better. And then he says this in verse 22, we know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for the adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we are saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. What hope is it? Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not have, we wait for it patiently, he says. He says this, that all of creation has been groaning, and he uses this metaphor of childbirth, suggesting that the suffering is painful, but it's purposeful, and it's temporary, and it's leading to something else. Now, he chooses this metaphor, for good reason, of course. And so, like, think of it like if you have gone through childbirth. Many of you ladies have had children, and so you've gone through that. You've experienced what that is like, and us guys, like, my wife and I, we have 4 kids. So personally, I've gone through labor 4 times, and I can tell you, it looks painful. It looks hard, real hard. And I remember I remember, all of you ladies, if you've had kids, you have a story about your labor and like what it was like. And some of you had home births, some of you had, the children in the hospital. Some of you might even have been born in the car to the hospital. And like there's all these stories. And some some of you women are like, oh yeah, I was in labor for 15 minutes. Like my husband barely made it. And all of you other ladies secretly don't like that lady. Because you're like, I was in labor for 4 days. You're going like, how did you go 15? And so you all have your story, right? So we, of course, have our stories as well. And my wife, like our first one, like after the first one, I'm going, man, I don't know how we did 3 more. Like it was rough on me. It was really rough on me. And I remember, so our first one, my wife didn't have an epidural, and not by her choice. It was just the doctor that had an emergency surgery with someone else, and so they weren't able to do it. And so it was like, here we go, baby's coming. All right, this is it. This is Adam and Eve's fault. Or here we go. We're in it, and you go through it, and it's like, honestly, I mean, of course I didn't experience any of the pain, but I got to see my wife go, and that was like terrible. It was terrible. And you're going through this and like with no result, and it's just like, doc, come on. Like, how do we do this? Like, what do I just push it out? Like, how do you, like, I bet I can push that thing out real quick. And like, how do we do this? But then he's born, and it's like, oh, and then it's just joy and crying, but it's like good crying, and you're like, we have a child now, and it's just wonderful, but then there's still healing, right? I mean, it's traumatic experience, like way more traumatic than I thought was humanly possible. And then you go through the healing process, and all right, and then you get to a point where you're like, honey, I love you. Let's not do that again. That was rough, right? But this is amazing, and you women are so much stronger than us guys. I promise you. Like, if guys had children, it would have ended after the first generation. Like, we're not having no more kids, no more. And it didn't take long. It didn't take long for my wife was like, hey, I don't want to do that again anytime soon. Hey, listen, okay, deal. All right. It didn't take long for her to go, our kid's kind of getting older. Let's have another one. I'm like, we just went through it? Really? Okay. And then we go into labor for the second one. You go through, and it's not just labor, it's 9 months of just pure joy, especially the last month, right, ladies? Am I right? You're just like, I love not sleeping in any position. I love everything aching. It's just great. And you go through that, and my wife goes, I forgot how bad it hurt. Like the pain, because and here's why. And then even into labor, it's like, oh man, I forgot. But modern medicine, epidural came, and it was a different lady. She's like joking. They're talking about their favorite TV shows while the baby's coming. And I'm like, guys, this is crazy. And here's the thing, ready? Ladies, you know this. Guys, I don't think we understand this as much. You can withstand an intense amount of pain and suffering knowing the joy on the other side. Knowing that, okay, but there's joy coming. And like enough to where my wife's like, all right, four, you went through that 4 times? Yeah, but we got 4 little bundles of joy that become teenagers, and we use different words to describe them now. Here's what Paul says, ready? That all of creation is in labor pains right now. And we have not gotten to the new birth yet, to the new life that's coming. So all of the pain and suffering in your life is labor pain. And when you go through labor, it's like, just get this over with. Just get this over with. I don't want to do this. Please hurry it up. I don't want to suffer anymore. And what makes all of that worth it is the new life on the other side. Okay, Paul's saying this, all of creation waits for that moment. And we're still waiting. We are still waiting. Why are things so bad on earth? Because we're in labor pains. Because it hurts. Because this is terrible. And so what we see here is that he says, all of creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. And that we too groan inwardly, like we're still waiting for this. When you and I go through real suffering, real hardship, we're like, God, get this over with, please. Why? And he says we have hope, but we haven't seen this hope. It's still in the future, but we know it's coming. And our present suffering is nothing compared to what's coming. I don't consider it at all like worth comparing to the glory that's coming, but it's still real, and we're still in the birth pains, and we still feel it. So here's the thing. Our pain is real. Your pain is real, but it's not the whole story. Think of it like this. Think of your favorite movie. What is your favorite movie, right? Whatever it is, I'm sure it's a wonderful movie. And every movie has the same structure. It has the same arc, the same format. Here's every movie ever made. Ready? Here's characters, and here's their life, and you get to know them. Oh, wonderful. And maybe they're happy, maybe they're sad, maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're warriors, maybe there's peace, maybe it's a village, and everyone's just fine. They're raising families. All right. So there's the normal life, and then there's some kind of crisis, some kind of event that just throws everything into like haywire. And this is every movie ever. And then the rest of the movie is how do you find resolution from that crisis, that chaos, that issue. And this is every rom-com, like every romance. You're like, oh, there's boy and his life, and there's girl and her life, and then they meet, and it's like, oh, wonderful. You live in a small little farm community raising pumpkins too? Oh, how crazy. And then it's always Christmas time, and then it's like snowing, and you're like, wow, this is like, you know this movie. You don't know the name of it, but you know this movie. And then there's something that happens, and it's like, you know, the ex-girlfriend comes and messes things up, or like there's a health issue, or like someone offends someone, and then it's like, oh, but we want them to be together. And then the rest of the movie is, how does that work? And you're like, oh, and some of you are hearing that, you're like, I kind of want to watch that movie. Like, I wonder how it ends, right? And that's the same arc. And then there's the war movies that probably some of us guys are like, man, war or Gladiator, that kind of thing. And you're like, oh, there's life, and then there's a crisis, or something happens, or we got to go to war, or we have a plan, and then something happens, and then the helicopter goes down, and now we got a problem solve, or there's evil in the world, and it turns out there's one ring to rule them all. We got to do something with this ring, and then the rest of the series, like hours and hours, is how do we then figure out how to deal with this evil and the rest of the movie is that, and you're like, dude, I'm hooked. Every plot's the same. Okay, listen. What would your movie experience be like if you walked out right in the middle of a crisis and you didn't see how it ended? You didn't see how it ended. You saw that the boy meets girl, and you're like, oh, this is such a nice movie. And then there's something that happens, and he says something or she does something, and then they split up, and then it's just like, I can't believe they would do this. And you're like, this is a terrible movie. I'm out of here. And then you leave. You're in Lord of the Rings, and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then all of a sudden there's fighting, and you're like, I'm out of here. No. This is crazy. Look at all these evil characters. How can they allow so much evil in that world? You're like, are you kidding me? Did you stay to the end of the movie? No, I don't want to watch it. What? You didn't see how it ended. I had a buddy. I still have a buddy. He's still a friend of mine. And his name's Jeff, and he's a good friend of mine. And he has a friend. He's like Brandon, who we know this other guy as well. And he goes, I can't watch movies with him. I'm like, what? Like, why not? Like, I get like if, some of you, I want to be careful here. Some of you love to ask questions during movies, and the rest of us struggle with that. We struggle with that. And he's not that. I go, is that and he goes, no, we were having a date night with, because, they're older, and so we're having a date night, and so we're watching, this is so funny, How to Train Your Dragon, like the cartoon one from, 20 years ago, whatever. I heard that, by the way, that was good. And I'm like, Jeff, seriously? I'm like, is date night, that's what you picked? Like, they're adults, by the way. And I go, just like with the kids there? And he's like, no, it was just us. I'm like, okay, that's, I think I could help you with date night ideas. But in the middle, he goes, this guy, man, he didn't like all of the violence, the like cartoon violence. So in the middle of the movie, he goes, I can't watch this anymore. And he goes to another room to do something else. And he's like, it's a terrible movie. Like, he goes, I can't watch movies. And I said, I think that's grounds to divorce him forever. Like, you just cut him out of your life. And I just said this as a joke. And he's like, seriously, like how? And I go, man, can you imagine though? Could you imagine if that was your movie type experience? Like if it doesn't, as soon as crisis comes, you bail. As soon as anything that like has any amount of like imposes some sort of view or perspective you don't like, you're like, I'm out. No, this isn't right. Okay, listen. You and I do that in life. If your life is a story and you're living an arc, you're in crisis, you're in chaos, there's a problem and we gotta fix it and solve it. And the rest of your life is gonna be resolving that. And eventually what we're told is that it's gonna end with renewal and new life, but we're not there yet. We're the birth pains. And so for us, don't you do this. Don't you dare walk out of the theater of your life saying, God, how could you? How could you allow all of this bad stuff in my life? And he goes, aren't you gonna wait for the end? Don't you wanna see how it all ends? Don't you wanna see how all of this resolves in your life? No, I can't believe that you would allow, hold on. You really don't wanna see how great I can redeem everything? You just wanna just quit because it's hard? When suffering comes, here's what we see. God doesn't waste your pain, he weaves it into your purpose, and that our pain is real, but it's not the whole story. And so when pain and suffering comes, because it's coming, and if it isn't in your life yet, it's coming. Some of you have lived it and you're like, I feel it. Some of you are in it right now and you're like, I'm in it now. Some of you, it's coming. And in that moment, if you say, God, how could you? And you just swear off God and you're like, I'm out of here and I don't believe in God anymore because why does he allow pain and suffering? You just left the movie in the middle of the crisis. You don't want to wait to see how this thing turns out? You want to see what God is going to do in your life? Your pain is real, but it's not the whole story. So what do we do then? What about now? All right, so Paul tells us in the future, God's gonna make it right and he's gonna make a new life. Okay, great. Well, what about now? What do I do now? Here's what we see. When we don't have the strength right now to be like, I don't have the strength to do this, God meets us with grace. That God gives us the grace to withstand and to weather whatever storms are coming, even the ones that feel overwhelming. Here's Paul's perspective. Here's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12. And he's talking now specifically about something that happens to him that theologians debate as to what is he talking about. And it's been like for 2,000 years, people have been discussing and debating what this means. And I'll tell you definitively what it is here as soon as I read it when we're done. All right. So he says this, 2 Corinthians 12, verse 7, therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, his conclusion now, Paul's conclusion, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then, this paradox, then I'm strong. Because now it's the Lord's strength in me. What is this? 3 times I was given this thorn in the flesh. 3 times I asked him to take it away, and he says, no. What is this thorn in the flesh? Let me tell you definitively what it is. Ready? We don't know. Nor will we know. Nor are we supposed to know, nor is that the point of the passage. The point isn't to try to like decode, what do you think this was? And you can read commentaries and they go down all kinds of rabbit holes and tangents. The point wasn't, what is this thorn in his flesh? The point is, how did he respond to it? And what was God's role in this? And he says, 3 times I asked God to take it away. 1 should have been enough. God, come on, please. God, please take this away. No. God, please, please, I'm begging you, take this away. I want this to be done. No. Lord, seriously, please, remove this from my life, please. No. And here's why. My grace is sufficient for you. You're going to get through this. And my power is made perfect in your weakness. So you're going to learn to withstand this with my strength. Now, some of you are in overwhelming like circumstances in life and pain and frustration and suffering, and you've gone through real hard things. I remember when I was in seminary, I had a professor, and he's one of our favorite guys, right? You all have kind of like when you're in college or, your favorite professor, your favorite teacher. And this was the guy. His name's Eric Tonnes. His last name's Tonnes. And he's like the best dude, right? He was like he played football in professional semi-pro in Europe, and so he's like a stud. He's one of my favorite guys to listen to preach, and he's a theologian, so it was like the guy that everyone wants to take his class. Everyone wants to be like him. I got to know him a little bit, and we played. The highlight of my college experience was intramural football, flag football. I don't know if you've ever played flag football. Paid thousands of dollars to go to play flag football, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I got to go against him, and like he knocked me on my butt, and I'm like, I love this guy. Love this guy. He's awesome, right? Because he's like an actual football player, and I'm just, a toothpick. And was a toothpick. Okay, I know what you're saying. And I remember in class one time, and we were, it was like a interview thing. He was like, all right, guys, so, let's get to know each other. I'll go first. Ask me questions. And someone said, like, all right, what are your favorite things to do? Like, okay, great. And here's all the, and then someone goes, what do you hate? Which is a great question, actually. What do you hate? And he's like, oh, that's actually a really good question. And he starts going through these things, and he starts listing them out. And one of the things he says that kind of like sucked the energy out of the room, he says, I hate miscarriages. And then he kept going, I hate this, and I hate this, and I hate. And it was one of those, well, hold on, that felt different. And he went back and he said, let me tell you what I mean. And he said, we've experienced 5 miscarriages, and we don't have any kids. And he, started getting tears, and he's like, I hate miscarriages. And then he said, but I also understand why God would allow us to do it, to experience that. He gave us the strength to go through these, and he said, and now we get to minister to other people who also are going through these. On my vision for my life list, is that the thing that I would write, that I would want? No. But that's what I have. That's my experience. That's what's, and so, all right, Lord, your power is made perfect in weakness, and we are weak, but okay, use us then. Your grace is sufficient to get us through this. And many of you have gone through some hard things, really hard things, and you're like, why, God? And he says, well, we haven't seen how it ends. You haven't seen the end of your story. My story, I became a Christian. I didn't grow up in church, and then I think within a year of me becoming a Christian, my parents go through a divorce, and it's a whole story, it's a whole thing, and but for maybe another time. And I remember being like, God, seriously? Why? Like, really? I choose to follow you, and then this happens? Like, is this how you treat all these Christians who judge? I start going to church, and this is how you repay me? This is the respect you give me? I remember saying once, like, God, I'm even tithing now. It was like $12. I tithed. I gave to your silly little church, and this is what you're doing to me? And in the moment, you're going like, why, God? Why, God? How could this be? And then you get through it, and you look back, and you go, oh, man, I can tell you, as a guy now who's in ministry and, been able to meet with people, I've talked with so many people either thinking about divorce or kids whose parents are going through divorce from a personal experience that I couldn't have had otherwise. Now, does God hate divorce? Yes, we're told that. He doesn't. What? Yes, he hates divorce. Does he want people to divorce? No. Do divorces happen? Yes. All right. So how do you minister to people with divorce? You allow some of your people to experience the pain to then go out and be able to minister. You allow some of your people to experience miscarriages, knowing that they'll be able to minister. And if you just stop in the middle of the story and say, this pain is too much, how could this be? And you leave the movie, you walk out of the room, you leave the theater, and you're like, this is a terrible movie, God. How could you make this movie? And he's like, you didn't wait for the end. You didn't see how all this ends. You quit early. We say we don't have the strength. God meets us with grace, and he's like, listen, you can get through this. Paul recognized, all right, I want this gone. And he says, no. And he says, all right, then I delight in my weaknesses, in insults, not because he enjoys them, but because I know the result, the fruit of this. So if our pain is real but not final, and grace meets us in our weaknesses, what do we do in the middle of that then? How do we understand? How are we supposed to understand when we're going through it? Here's what we see. God works in all things, even the broken ones. Now, I hope I'm going to correct some of our theology here. Some of you might even disagree with this, and that's fine. Here's what Paul says in Romans chapter 8. So going back to where we were in chapter 8, he says this, and this is a verse that's often misinterpreted or misapplied at least, and so theologically, so I'm going to hopefully help correct our understanding of this. And so here's what he says. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And then he goes into some theology. For those God foreknew, he also predestined. And what did he predestine them to? This is actually really important. This is a whole nother topic, but he predestined them to be conformed to the image of his son. He predestined, those he knew ahead of time, he predestined to become like Jesus, to experience this new life, this resurrected body, this new kingdom. All right. He predestined them to have the renewed resurrection, the good ending, so that he, Jesus, might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. So verse 28 is often quoted, but also often misunderstood. It isn't that God is doing all things good, making all things good. It isn't that he is saying all things that happen are good. The things that happen in your life, hey, it's good. It's all good. That's not what he's saying. But rather, God is working for the good. In all things that happen, God is working for your good. Not that they are good, but that he will use them for good. What does that mean? How does this, what does this talk about? One of the things that I think is a dangerous theology, and probably one that is certainly not helpful in times of crisis or in tragedy, is when people say this, well, everything happens for a reason. You say that to a couple who had a miscarriage. Hey, everything happens for a reason. I'm going to punch you for a reason. What do you mean everything happens for a reason? Like there are some things that are tragic. Hey, everything happens for a reason. Don't talk to me as though you know some super spiritual reason for this and that I'm supposed to just take it. That's this theology out of place where it's like, hey, well, this is what God wanted. What? That's what he wanted. That's what he wanted? Or is it instead, this is what happened, and now God's going to use it? Like Joseph says, what you guys, when his brothers sold him into slavery, what you guys meant for evil, God used for good. That there are things that happen in your life that are terrible, that even caused maybe by other people, if it's an abuse type situation or mistreatment, and you're like, why, God? And someone else has done something, or life has done stuff to you, and you say, well, this is what God wanted. What? Really? Or you recognize this is what happened, and even in this evil, God can somehow make this good. He can somehow use this for good some way. All right. Not that the thing is good, not even that he wanted, like he caused this. No. But instead, he says, all right, that in all things, God is working for my good. Whatever it is, he's working for my good. And then, 10 verses later, he asks this question that he's going to answer, this rhetorical question. He says, well, who can separate us then? What can separate us from God? Who, like, if God is good, then all right, then who can be against us? What can separate us? And he says this, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, nor either height nor depth, or anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus, our Lord. He says, there's not a thing that can happen in this life that can separate you from God's love. And this is a guy who's experienced so much suffering and hardship. And he says, there's not a thing that can happen to you or against you that will separate you from God's love. Not a thing. I'm convinced. Not even death. The trouble, the hardship, the pain that we experience, God is not asking you to enjoy it. This is not the point. Enjoy your suffering. Instead, he's asking you to entrust him with it. God, I trust you with this pain. I don't like it. I don't want it. But I trust you with it. That is a different kind of perspective. That's a different kind of person who thinks like that. This is, God may not remove the pain, but we do know this. He will redeem it. That God doesn't waste your pain. Instead, he weaves it into your purpose. That many people have experienced the pain and the frustration and the struggle in their life, and they've recognized that's actually kind of what God wants me to do in life now. Is to help other people go into this. That's actually given me meaning now. I went through this, man, God, and I don't want to do it, and I don't want to do it again, and yet I can now help other people. There's a book called Leadership Pain, and it's written from the perspective of those who wish to lead, and he makes this correlation, and I think he's right. I think the Bible even points to it, that you can only lead so far as you're willing to suffer. That with more leadership, more influence, more authority comes the ability and at least the willingness to experience more pain and suffering than other people. That with more leadership, with more influence comes more pain, more heartache. And we see this throughout the scriptures. God doesn't waste your pain. He weaves it into your purpose. We see this, that God uses the ultimate pain, the crucifixion, as a plan to redeem the world, for our good. That God uses an evil against his son for our good. Do you think it's possible that he has things in your life that he also can use for good? The things that we struggle and suffer and the pain that we feel. When life feels broken, the answer is not, just try to fix it yourself. I'll just make this right. I'll remove them from any possible situation that could bring about pain or suffering. This is the helicopter mom syndrome. Any amount of pain or hardship for my child, no, I will protect them from it. No, you're not doing that. You're setting them up for failure. When life feels broken, the answer is not to try to fix it, but instead, you recognize that the situation may not change overnight, but he will meet you in it. So you ask these questions. What part of your life feels too broken for God? And we all have a different answer. What part of your life feels this is too broken for God to fix, for God to use. And instead of saying, woe is me, you then ask the follow-up question. What would it look like to trust him with that thing today? Instead of trying to fix my life, say, all right, God, life feels broken. I just got to do everything I can to fix this. Instead, you say, all right, how do I entrust you with this? God, what are you trying to teach me? And then what do you want me to do with this? And see what happens. And all of a sudden you recognize, maybe I went through this hardship, this pain, this suffering, because, man, God really does have a purpose on the other side, that I'm in the middle of the movie, the crisis in the movie, and there's renewal coming, and if I quit now, I don't get to see how this all ends. All right? You know what, Lord? I want to see the end of the movie. I want to make it. I want to see how you redeem this in my life. God doesn't waste your pain. He weaves it into your purpose. Would you stand with me, and then we'll worship the Lord together. So, Lord, every single one of us has been touched by pain and suffering and heartache and hardship. We've all experienced it to different degrees. And some of us, Lord, we have it coming even more in our future. And we're not looking forward to that at all. And yet we also recognize that it's not the end of our story, and that there really is. We really can find purpose in the midst of our pain. That this isn't the end of our movie, but rather the middle. And so, God, I ask that you would give us the courage and the mindset to continue to understand this truth. That what we hope for is not that pain and suffering goes away right now, but rather you redeem all of it. Our hope is not in our circumstances, it's in you. So help us to trust even our pain to you. Help us to be the kind of people who suffer by leaning into you, not away from you, and that others can look to and say, man, there's something different about them. Help our faith be real to us each and every day, our experience of you, and especially in the midst of our pain. We love you, Lord. We worship you now. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.